Okay, we're back here for part 2, and we're ready to do number 5 here, these two rational expressions. Rational is just fractions. Now, it almost looks like these are the same denominator, but they're not. X minus 1 is a factor, x plus 1 is a different factor. So we're not ready to subtract the numerators, not yet. So what we're going to do here, we need an LCD. The least common denominator has to contain all the factors in the bottom. So one factor is x minus 1. The other factor is x plus 1. So that's what we need right there. One way that you can kind of do this is a shortcut. If it's just this factor and this factor, there's no x squareds or anything like that, you can actually just, you can take the x plus 2 and we're going to multiply by that denominator, and then the x minus 3 is going to end up multiplying by this. If that's kind of confusing, then just think about in the first fraction, the x minus 1 is your denominator. We also need an x plus 1. So we're going to have to multiply in the bottom by x plus 1 and also in the top by x plus 1. So in other words, what was the other denominator? X plus 1, that's the thing that's going to be multiplying here. Okay, so when I do this, x plus 1 times x plus 2, I have to double distribute there. So this is going to take a while. That's why you don't have a lot of these to do. You have to be very patient as you do this. X times x is x squared, and then x times 2 is 2x. Now I'm going to distribute the 1. 1 times x is 1x. 1 times 2 is 2. So what that gives us is x squared plus, we can combine those, 3x plus 2, all divided by x plus 1 times x minus 1. Alright, so there's your first fraction. Second fraction, we already have the x plus 1 from the LCD, but we need an x minus 1. So we're going to multiply x minus 1, x minus 1. You'll notice I'm putting parentheses here. Okay, to remind myself I have to double distribute. Now there's a subtraction symbol. Okay, I'm just going to carry that down here, and I'm going to double distribute, so this will be x squared minus 1x minus 3x, and negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. So what we get is minus, this is x squared, this will be minus 4x plus 3, all over x plus 1 times x minus 1. Alright, now we have common denominators. So in this case, we're going to subtract the numerators. I've got to be real careful here. I'm going to write this out. X squared plus 3x plus 2. I am subtracting all of this. So what I have to do is I'm distributing a minus to each part of this. So I will go minus x squared. Minusing a negative 4x becomes plus 4x. And then minusing positive 3 is minus 3. We can combine like terms. X squared minus x squared, 0. I'm going to cross that out. 3x plus 4x, that'll be 7x. And then we have positive 2 and minus 3, which is minus 1. So we get 7x minus 1, all divided by the denominator x plus 1 times x minus 1. That's as far as you can take this. You don't have to multiply it out in the bottom and leave it like that. Now, one question you might be asking yourself, how do you know that this is correct? Well, I'm going to show you how you can do this if you have a calculator, if you've got like a TI-84 or TI-83. I'm going to pick a number and I'm going to store it for x. And I'm going to take a number with a decimal. I'm going to take like 5.7. Whoops. 5.7, and I'm going to store it. Now, storing, you see right above the on button, you see STO button. That's the store key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to store it for x. And when I hit enter, it just says 5.7. So right now in the calculator, anytime I type the letter x, it's automatically going to substitute a 5.7 for me. So here's my question. If I take the original problem before I did anything to it, and I plug in a 5.7, and if I take my answer and I plug in a 5.7 for the x's, are these equal values? Are these equivalent expressions? This is messy, so if you're going to do this, you got to be real careful. When I type the first fraction, which is x plus 2 over x minus 1, I have to type the whole numerator in parentheses, x plus 2, close parentheses, divided by the whole denominator in parentheses. Okay, there's my first fraction. And then minus, I'm going to subtract. My second fraction was parentheses x minus 3, close them, divided by parentheses x plus 1, close them. Open the parentheses, close the parentheses. Now when I hit enter, I'm going to get some decimal, probably. 1.235. Okay, so you can kind of jot down a little note to yourself, 1.235. The question is our solution, which was 7x minus 1 over x plus 1 times x minus 1, does that give me the same value? If it does, this is the answer. Because the idea of simplifying or adding and subtracting rational expressions, you're not changing the value, you're just changing the way it looks. So I'm going to type this, but I have to type the whole numerator, 7x minus 1, in parentheses, divided by, I've got to put the whole denominator in parentheses. So when I type this, I'm actually going to open a second set because I want to have this whole thing included. So I got to open them, open it for x plus 1, and then I close x plus 1. Open for x minus 1, and then close for x minus 1. Close it again, and then if I hit enter, I'm hoping I get this thing right here, and I do. So what this tells me is that my solution is correct. It is equal to the original problem. All right, that takes a while to do. You have to be very careful, but if you're trying to check your answer, that's how you can do it. All right, so let's do number 6. Let's take a look over here. 2x over x squared minus x minus 2 plus 5x over x squared minus 3x plus 2. First thing I want to do, I'm going to factor this. This is a trinomial, so I'm thinking what multiplies to negative 2 and adds up to negative 1. So on the side here, multiplies to negative 2, adds up to negative 1. Factors of 2 are just 1 and 2. All right, so if I do a positive 1 and a negative 2, that multiplies to negative 2, and if I add that, I get negative 1. So my factors are x plus 1 and x minus 2. And I can do the same process here. It's going to be x minus 2, x minus 1. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive. Negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3x. All right, so these would be my factors. So I'm just going to scratch that out, and I'm going to think of them with this, using the factored pattern. All right, LCD, least common denominator. You have to have an x plus 1. I'm going to write that down. You have to have an x minus 2. That's the first fraction, so this is good. In the second fraction, you have to have an x minus 2. We do. All right, I already have it, so I don't need to write it again. But we also need an x minus 1. So I'm going to have to put that in there. So your LCD has got 3 different factors. So take a look at each fraction. Which factor do we still need? In the first denominator, what we're missing is x minus 1. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by x minus 1 and the top. Okay, and I'm going to distribute that. Over here, I'm missing, we've got x minus 2 and x minus 1, but we're missing x plus 1. So I'm going to multiply the bottom and the top by x plus 1. Okay, so what happens here is I'm going to distribute the 2x. So we'll get 2x times x is 2x squared, and then 2x times negative 1 is minus 2x. And then over here, this is 5x times x is 5x squared, and 5x times 1 is plus 5x. And I think you'd agree that the denominators are the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add. I'll just go ahead and start combining over x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x minus 2. Okay, so what I've done is I've already started to combine the numerators. All right, so let's combine like terms. This is going to be 2x squared plus 5x squared is 7x squared. Negative 2x plus 5x is positive 3x over x minus 1 times x plus 1 times x minus 2. That is your solution. Okay, so that's a good answer right there. That's as far as we can go with that. So let's do one more problem here. We'll do number 7. We're going to skip number 8. 5y over y squared minus 7y. I can factor that. I can factor a y out of both of those. So it's y times y minus 7. And then, let me scratch that out a little bit. 2y minus 14, we can factor out a 2. And what we're left with is y minus 7. That's kind of nice that they're the same. And then the third fraction, the denominator is a y. So, on the side here, LCD, we have to have a y. We have to have a y minus 7. In the second fraction, we have to have a 2. Okay, it's not there yet. I'm going to put a 2 there. We have to have a y minus 7. Check. It's good. In the third fraction, we have to have a y. Check. Here's your LCD. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the first fraction here. What we're missing is 2. So we're going to go times 2 times 2. In the second fraction, 2 times y minus 7, what we're missing is the y. So we're going to go times y times y. And in the third fraction, we've got the y, but we're missing 2 and y minus 7. So times 2, y minus 7, times 2, y minus 7. All right, so we got some work to do here. First fraction, the top will become 10y over, I'm just going to keep that as 2y times y minus 7. You don't have to multiply in the bottom. The second fraction is minus, and that's 4y, 4 times y, over 2y times y minus 7. The third fraction is going to be, all right, 9 times 2, which is 18. 18 times y minus 7. So think of that there. That's 18, so you're going to distribute that. 18y minus 18 times 7 is 126, minus 126 over 2y times y minus 7. All right, so we've got the common denominator. So now what we're going to do is we're going to combine the numerators. We've got 10y minus 4y plus 18y minus 126. We can combine all three of these. 10 minus 4 is 6y plus 18, so we get 24y minus 126 over 2y times y minus 7. Now, we're about done. Okay, there's one thing left that you want to look for, and the question is, can we simplify? Can we factor anything else out of the top here? If you look at this, let's see. It looks like 6 goes into both of these. I could take out a 6, which would leave me with a 4y minus 21. I divide out the 6, factor it out. And then in the bottom, we've got 2y times y minus 7. Now, the thing is, normally you're done at this point, but one last thing to notice. You got the 6 here, and you've got this 2 in the bottom. We can actually reduce those. Can't do anything with the 4y minus 21 and then the y minus 7. Can't reduce that, but we could do 6 divided by 2, which is 3. And so our final answer is 3 parentheses 4y minus 21 over just y times y minus 7. That's a good answer. If you want to multiply that and say that's 12y minus 63 if you distribute, over y times y minus 7. It's also good, and that is the end.